It, Chuck, Mac said, examining a muddy ID card Sydney had left on the dock. He's just holding it for ransom. That gator is smarter than the director. Baltazar, seeing Mac holding his ID card, assumed the worst. Arrest them. They've killed Sydney. They've stolen the money and blamed a poor, innocent cyber lizard. The court-martial was a circus. Pringle acted as his own defense attorney. Your Honor, Pringle addressed the judge, I demand a mistrial on the grounds of temporary insanity. The alligator who stole the wallet is crazy about my mother's peanut butter, and that made me confused. Order in the court, the judge yelled. Baltazar, do you have any proof? The proof is in the swamp, Baltazar screamed. At that exact moment, Mac and the crew marched into the courtroom. They weren't alone. They were leading Sydney, who was wearing a tiny sailor hat and carrying the canvas bag in his mouth. Exhibit A for the defense, Mac announced. Sydney has decided to go straight. He's returning the money. Sydney walked up to the judge's bench and dropped the bag. He's lying. Balthazar pointed a shaking finger at the gator. That's a phony bag. They planted it on the lizard. Wait, the judge said, opening the bag. These bills. They're marked with the director's initials. And look at this. A note inside saying, Trap for Maverick. Don't let him eat the evidence. The courtroom went silent. Director Baltazar, the judge said coldly. It appears you've been trying to frame your own officers, using a cyber gator as a middleman. This is a disgrace to the uniform. Why me? Baltazar wailed, falling to his knees. Why is it always me? Chapter 6. The Long Sunset of Zanzara. 9. Weeks later, things had returned to their usual state of chaotic harmony. Baltazar was back in his office, his eyebrows finally beginning to grow back after a mysterious fire drill accident involving a faulty cannon and a box of champagne. Mac and the Mavericks were out on the dock, sharing a peanut butter sandwich with Sydney. You know, Mac, Pringle said, leaning back against a palm tree, I think we've really turned this place around. We've got an emperor as a friend, we've got a cyber gator as a mascot, and the director hasn't tried to court-martial us in 3 whole days. Mac smiled, looking out at the shimmering green oceans of Zanzara. 9. Don't get too comfortable, Chuck. I hear there's a new shipment of experimental jetpacks arriving tomorrow, and I've got a feeling Barnaby's gonna want to test them himself. In the distance, the sound of a director screaming about garter belts echoed through the tropical air. Wow, 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 wow. Baltazar's voice drifted over the water. Mac took a sip of moon nectar. Yeah, wow indeed. The end. The Pirates of Laguna Perdida, a farce of high seas and low standards. Chapter 1. The Commodore's ulcer and the Admiral's shadow. In the humid, gin-soaked heart of the great archipelago, nestled within a forgotten cluster of islands known as Laguna Perdida, lived a man whose blood pressure was roughly the same as a steam engine about to explode. This was Commodore Barnaby, the Blaster Blythe, a man who viewed the ongoing war less as a global struggle for freedom and more as a personal conspiracy to deprive him of a decent night's sleep. Barnaby sat in his office, which was built of rotting mahogany and smelled of damp paperwork. Across from him stood Lieutenant Silas Sycophant Sneed, a man whose spine was made of pure gelatin and whose primary function was to agree with Barnaby until his voice went hoarse. Garter belts, Sneed, Barnaby roared, waving a requisition form as if it were a declaration of heresy. The nursing staff is demanding garter belts. I am a Commodore of the fleet, a man of tactical brilliance, and I am being treated like a haberdasher for the infantry. It's a disgrace, sir, Sneed chimed in, nodding so vigorously his spectacles nearly slid off his nose. A strategic blunder of the highest order. I am the supply officer, the commanding officer, and apparently the local plumber. Barnaby groaned, clutching his stomach. The pipes in the petty officer's lounge are backing up again. They expect me to fix them. Who did they think was in this office? Tokyo Rose? I'm a naval officer. Sneed, not a man of the wrench. Barnaby popped a handful of white pills into his mouth, crunching them like candy. Sneed winced. Sir, those indigestion tablets. The manual says 2 every 4 hours. You just had 6. I don't care, Barnaby shrieked. My stomach acid could dissolve a destroyer's hull. And now, the final blow. I've just heard from the grapevine. Admiral Steel-Glance Sterling is arriving today. A sneak inspection. Sneed turned a shade of pale, usually reserved for jellyfish. Admiral Sterling was a man who ate discipline for breakfast and spat out court-martials. He was known to measure the distance between buttons with a micrometer. Laguna Perdida is a pigsty, Barnaby whispered, his eyes darting around the room. Those pirates on the Sea Vixen, they are currently running a gambling ring involving racing crabs. Then, a spark of treacherous genius lit up Barnaby's weary eyes. He clutched his stomach and collapsed onto his chaise longue with a theatrical moan. Sneed, I'm dying. The pressure, the acid. I am far too ill to receive an admiral. I must appoint an acting base commander to take the brunt of Sterling's wrath. Brilliant, sir, Sneed said, catching on. And who shall be the sacrificial lamb? Commander Lucky Leo Lockwood, Barnaby hissed, a wicked grin breaking through his grimace. With Lockwood and his band of cutthroats in charge, the base will descend into such magnificent chaos that Sterling will have no choice but to drum Lockwood out of the Navy. I shall be the tragic, ailing hero, watching from my sickbed as the pirates destroy themselves. Chapter 2. The Coronation of the Scoundrels. Commander Lucky Leo Lockwood was a man who treated military regulations as vague suggestions written by people who had clearly never spent a day in the tropics. He was currently lounging on the deck of the Sea Vixen, a heavily modified PT boat that looked less like a warship and more like a floating junkyard. When the summons came, Leo entered the Commodore's office to find Barnaby draped in a silk robe, looking like a Victorian heroine with a terminal case of the vapors. Lockwood, Barnaby wheezed. The doctors. They don't know if I'll make it through the hour. I am appointing you acting base commander, and your second in command, that earnest young pup junior officer Percival Pip Pringle, shall be your executive officer. Pip Pringle, who had been standing at a stiff, vibrating attention, nearly fainted. Me, sir, executive officer. Oh, sir, I won't let you down. I've memorized the handbook. I've polished my whistle. I'm sure you have, Pringle, Barnaby muttered, closing his eyes to hide his glee. Now, get out. Command is yours. God help the Navy. As soon as they left, Leo turned to Pip. Pip, you realize this is a trap, right? Barnaby wants us to be the lightning rod for Admiral Sterling. But, sir, Pip squeaked, it's an opportunity. Think of the administrative efficiency we can implement. The filing systems. The organized garter belt distribution. Leo sighed. Just try to keep the men from burning the base down for at least 24 hours. But the chaos had already begun. Within an hour, Leo was inundated with phone calls. The sinks were still backing up. The garter belts had been found, but were the wrong shade of beige. And then, the crew led by the wily Gus. The grifter gantry decided that with Leo in charge, the base was now a free trade zone. Gus had organized a grand hula extravaganza in the air raid shelter. There was music, illegal pineapple brandy, and 3 local dancers who were currently teaching the sailors the finer points of the island shuffle. Tell the boys it's full speed ahead, Leo shouted into the phone, distracted by a radar report. Gus took that as a royal decree. You heard the skipper. Open the bar. Bring in the girls. The Admiral isn't due for hours. Chapter 3. The Emir and the Imposter Princesses. Just as the party reached a fever pitch, a message arrived from command. A high-value diplomatic asset, the Emir al-Zahir of the Marami Isles, had been forced to ditch his plane near the lagoon. He was arriving with his 3 daughters, the princesses of Marami. Lockwood, Barnaby screamed from his hospital window as Leo ran past. If one hair on that Emir's head is ruffled, you'll be peeling potatoes in a penal colony. Leo and his crew raced the Sea Vixen to the crash site. They found the Emir, a man of immense dignity and a very long beard, standing on a sandbar with 3 veiled women. I am Leo Lockwood, Leo announced, bowing. Welcome to Laguna Perdida. My cargo is priceless, the Emir warned. My daughters are the light of my life. If any men